Let's shift focus away from the markets to a larger issue. Some fundamental reforms perhaps are afoot, we do not know. Experiments have been made with Rajasthan being the first state government amending some parts of the Factories Act, the Contracts Act and the Industrial Disputes Act to make it a little easier for companies to hire, to make slightly fewer companies within the ambit of the Factories Act itself. There are some suggestions put up on the website of the Labour Ministry as well, a paper which indicates some changes. Those changes are largely for workers handling hazardous chemicals as well as for women workers. They as yet don't show any liberal thinking or lesser application of the rigors of the Factories Act or the Industrial Disputes Act. Nevertheless, there is a hope that Rajasthan has shown the way and the central government may follow suit. To discuss this issue, we have with us the Joint MD of Hero MotoCorp, Mr. Sunil Munjal, and Mr. Anil Singhvi, Chairman of Ican Investment Advisors, who joins us in the studio. Gentlemen, welcome. Mr. Sunil Munjal, first to you, since labour problems in the auto industry have been particularly painful, what is your sense? What are the details of the Rajasthan Act itself, and do you think that it's time the centre also looked at all these three acts, the Factories Act, the Industrial Disputes Act and the Contracts Act?
Let me take a larger issue, if you don't mind.
Yes.
I think it's necessary for India moving forward, if it needs to create millions of new jobs, it is acknowledged that manufacturing is one area in which we have to concentrate and grow, and we do have the potential for that. If you're going to grow manufacturing, there are 2 or 3 of the current regulations which need to be amended to become suitable for growth in this industry. One, of course, is to do with taxation. We need to bring in GST and direct tax code. We need to make the land acquisition easier, and we need to focus on the labor laws. I'm pretty sure that there's no employer or no industry in this country that wants a direct hire and fire only, and that's not the reason for this discussion and debate which is on for many years. I think it's necessary that the labor laws protect labor, provide security, provide skilling if they have to be they have to change their job from the present one to a new one, but at the same time allow industry to function in an environment where it can grow, where it can use people or hire people for part of the year, where people can spend more time on overtime, create a safe, secure environment where you encourage hiring. The current laws actually discourage hiring. So what is happening is, whenever any new company looks at a business, they try and figure out how we can hire the least number of people, which frankly is not what should be doing in a country like India. We need to ensure that the laws are simple, minimal and applicable, and they should be applicable. The penal provisions need to be made tighter and tougher, and they need to be penal in case of malintent, not for mistakes made in entries in registers, etc. So I'm talking of a more fundamental issue. I'm not going into details of what the Rajasthan Act has said. They have incidentally talked of modifying the Industrial Disputes Act, the Contracts Act, etc. It's also possible for us to take away all of these multiple vertical acts and create a horizontal of occupational health and safety of all workers of all kinds across all industries.
Okay. Mr. Munjal, just hold on. We have Anil Singhvi who also joins into this discussion. Anil, come in on that point, but before that, how tough will it be for the centre to go through with what, something like the Rajasthan government has done?
I think when you look at it, it's almost 70-year-old legislation, particularly the Factories Act on that. And I think since then, country has moved a lot. Manufacturing, which used to be our mainstay in 40s and 50s, does not hold the same kind of pie in the GDP growth. Service sector is completely out of it. In fact, when you read today's PINCO, it's very clear that ICICI wants to sack 1,200 people. Now imagine any manufacturing company wants to sack 1,200 people. It won't be possible. Because they are covered under Factories Act, whereas ICICI is not. Now both are segment of economy. Agriculture workers
in fact, services is the largest sector of
the largest sector of economy, and they can hire and fire. There are no issues. You always have how much is bench and how much you are going to sack if the industry is not doing well, particularly for the IT industry on that. But same thing is not there for manufacturing. So somewhere I think all our laws were then centric towards manufacturing. I think we have to really move out of that. And we talked about safety and security of the workers. But most important factor is that we can easily hire them and we can easily lay them off if the industry is not doing well. The secondly, when we look at our PF and all other statutory payments, particularly like ESIC, I don't know whether you guys are really have ever paid attention to that. Do you just ask any worker whether he wants to go to an ESIC hospital or not? Look at the pathetic condition in which those are. So why are we carrying this baggage for a period of time on that? And my third point is that the safety, and we have talked so much about in Factories Act the safety, but Union Carbide stares at us.
Absolutely.
Okay, this was hand in glove by the government, where Union Carbide got scot-free with this kind of a disaster, industrial disaster in this country. So I think we need to really refocus and revisit all these issues and do it. I'm glad that central government and particularly BJP manifesto talked about that we have to look at the labor market and entry and exit as a mechanism to see what needs to be done in that.
Actually, I wanted to ask you gentlemen separately about the public sector itself, where, you know, NMDC, this quarter, so many companies came up and spoke about labor costs being their biggest problem.
Sure.
I mean, FCI is another issue altogether. I mean, separately, which I found out in Indianomics, a loader in FCI, the highest paid loader is 2.2 lakhs a month. So it's a 26 lakh pay, and that's the power of unions in some of the public sector
Can
units.
I add something here, Lata? Once I was traveling with Chairman IDBI, and he told me that his driver that month earned more than him.
Okay, well, there you are. But just to speak about reforms, Mr. Munjal, you know, I'm taking up the Rajasthan issue again because in previous occasions when Maharashtra tried to reform some of the labor laws, it did not pass muster with the president because these are concurrent subjects. Laws passed in the labor areas by the states have to be assented, get the approval of the president as well. Do you think under the current circumstances this will get passed and experiments in labor reform will actually spread from state to state? Do you have that hope?
I think that the environment is different today. The country wants to be competitive with the global markets. It wants to be stand up and be counted. And what's not so well known is a couple of comments that you made and Singhvi made just now, is that India has had the highest wage increase year on year for the last 5 years across the globe. In the entire world market, we have given the highest increases, which by itself is not bad. But you need to make sure that your labor cost remains competitive compared to the rest of the world, and you are protecting the bottom end. You are providing enough wages for the bottom end of the lowest end for people who would start to work to be able to live a comfortable life. I think both things are necessary. But you also need to make sure that the work environment is such that you can actually function. So I'm reasonably confident that if the central government says we are clearing this up, even if it doesn't want to do things itself, let each state government take its own action. I believe the president in today's environment would give his assent. And I think states will start to create an environment which is competitive and more friendly towards creating higher number of jobs. And that can only come if industry is comfortable and growth oriented. So I think we need to look at this holistically, not with one little slice at one time.
Okay. Mr. Munjal, I just had one question. If this amendment actually goes through, do you see investments into the sector increase, at least the sectors which are plagued with, you know, some of these labor issues?
I could almost certainly say yes. If you look at the textile industry, for a long time, it's been saying that the NREGA scheme provides 100 days of jobs. Why don't you allow us to give 100 days of jobs to people, because we have a seasonal requirement of extra labor in our companies. There are some sectors of the economy, take woolen hosiery, which actually only works for one season in the year. Can they afford to have people on their rolls all year long? It's hard to sustain that business. If the business doesn't sustain itself, the jobs actually are pointless because people will not get paid. So I think we are at a point where we are taking a much more realistic look at what needs to be done. And it's also important, as I said, to ensure that there is sufficient room for labor and employment to grow. But skills have to go hand in hand. Additional skills to exist. Today, if you put out an ad, you can get hundreds of applicants for each job. but sometimes you may not find the relevant skill of the person that you need.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard for both ends.
Yeah.
Companies are looking
Unemployment is
for
an issue.
people are looking for jobs.
Unemployability is an issue, perhaps. Mr. Munjal, just a
Exactly.
brief question to you. Would you be tempted enough to make your next investment in Rajasthan, in a state where things are a little easier on the labor front?
Well, ours is actually the moot point because we already have made our newest investment in Rajasthan. We've set up a two-wheeler plant, we've set up a global parts center, and we've already announced a new innovation and R&D center. We've actually made 3 investments in Rajasthan. Each of them will get commissioned over the next few months.
Ahead of the curve. Mr. Singhvi, do you think this is how industry will show the path? By simply putting more money where they are more welcome on the labor front?
I think I agree with Mr. Munjal's analysis completely on that, as we make the labor laws more friendly from both sides, okay, labor should be paid well, should be looked after well. But at the same time, the points which Mr. Munjal made, I completely agree with him, that I should be having the ability that if I don't need them, I should be able to lay them off and then again hire them. So it's not that I'm shutting my factory and going away. Without labor, I can't function, I can't work. But I should have the ability because I have to be cost competitive. And second thing which according to me is really haunting us is the labor productivity. We are very, very low on labor productivity. So on one side, we will keep on increasing the wages. The other side, the productivity is still not keeping the pace with the amount of increase which has come in. So on a purchasing power parity, when you look at our workers and look at the productivity, I think we have a lot of things to really move forward on that for us to becoming really very competitive vis-a-vis the emerging markets like Indonesia, China, Korea, all these economies.
That's the core issue of the economy.
Absolutely.
Without which we can't move ahead. I'd like to
yes,
add.
Mr. Munjal.
So I think we sometimes tend to forget it's not one against the other.
Yes.
Business, companies, industry, employers look at labor as an integral part of the whole system. One cannot work without the other. It is necessary for any business to work with people. So you want to treat the people well. You want people to feel part of the organization. You want people to feel a responsible part of the organization. Therefore, you want them to be well looked after. I don't know any company which actually wants to mistreat their people. So I think some of this is also a myth, and I don't know when it got floated, but this has become common belief that it's one against the other. Frankly, the interest is common, it's aligned. If the business does well, the whole system gains from it.
I'm sure
the companies gain.
Mr. Munjal, I'm sure your employees must be very happy to hear your thoughts on our channel, but we leave it at...
This is a fact.
Yes, it is. Thank you for joining us. We've actually run out of time, but we thank you both for joining us and giving us your views. Thanks so much for that. So interesting discussion over there, and clearly lots more to be said.
Yeah, it's the first of a series of discussions we should have on more legal aspects of the Factories Act and the Industrial Disputes Act, which need to be trimmed as and when the government takes the bull by the horns, and literally this will be taking the bull by the horns.